Welcome back everyone to this tutorial of EU4, in which we're going to be playing Castile. In the last episode I explained the starting screen as well as what these are, generally speaking, and monarch points. As I said, monarch points are very important. Now, I'll explain these. These are people that work for you. They all have a different purpose. Everyone has at least 2 merchants. Everyone has at least 2 diplomats, and everyone has at least 1 missionary. At the beginning of the game, no one has colonists. Colonists are used for the colonial system. I will explain eventually and how to get them. Basically, what merchants do is to affect, manipulate, influence the trade system of the game. I'm not going to go into details now, but basically there is a very in-depth system for trade, and merchants are your tool to steer the system in your favor. Colonists, as I said, are used to colonize. I will explain them. I will explain colonization once we've run about 20-25 years, once I'm able to colonize. Diplomats are used for diplomacy. In this game, you do not just go to a country and do like 500 diplomatic actions with that country as you see fit. You have diplomats. These diplomats have a time that they take to come back. In the last episode, to be able to explain something, to be able to explain the power projection, I did something with Aragon. I've named him as a rival, and then I sent a diplomat to Aragon to make an embargo on him. I'll explain why I did that, but I'm saying this right now because, as you can see, I have my diplomats here on the right side, and Miguel Teles Giron, which is one of my 2 diplomats, is now in transit for 2 days. So he went from Toledo, my capital, to Barcelona. To Valencia. This is a 2 days travel. So he went there, he embargoed them, and now he's on his way back. It will take him 2 days. So I can still make another diplomatic action because I have Odon de Toledo. I will name another rival. Naming a rival is not a diplomatic action. I will name Morocco. I will also name France, just so that this is done. I'll explain the rival system soon. So I name Morocco. So I will explain all this, but basically just to show you, as soon as I send issue embargo, send, now Odon is in 5 days transit because this time he went to Fez in Morocco. So now my diplomats are all gone. So unless I unpause the game and let time pass, I am unable to do anything diplomatically right now. That's what these guys do. As for missionaries, they are used to convert provinces. So once I have this, by example, I will have Sunni here. I do not want Sunni. Basically, you want, in the best situation possible, you want your land to be your own religion. How you do that, you send a missionary to a province. It takes time. That missionary will sit there for a long time, converting people. Eventually he'll come back home, and hey, that province is now your religion. Usually you only have 1. I have 2 because I'm Castile, and explain the principle of national idea soon enough. So this is what these guys do. Now, alerts, as I said the other time, alerts are telling you that there's something important you have to do. Like I had rivals to name, which is gone now because I named them. Yes, you usually want the maximum number of rivals that you can have, so that you can make power projection. This is telling me you do not have any advisors, which I'll get to. This is my truces. The game starts. This game doesn't start in void. It tries to start as how diplomacy was in the 11th of November 1444, like France is still at war. 100-year war, although it's near its end. Castile was just at war with Granada and took part of this, pushing them in only these 3 provinces. Now we have a truce. I'll explain this truce system. Basically, I could declare war on them, but it would cost me a lot diplomatically to do that by breaking the truce. This is telling me there are some buildings that you know how to build, you have the technology for it, but in some provinces it's not built. I'm not going to do that because it will cost me money and points in a province that is meaningless. This is all the personal unions, possible personal unions, I'll explain that eventually, and missions. This is something that you usually always want to have. This is giving you some kind of direction. So you always have 3 to choose, and you choose one. So I could decide to improve my prestige, which requires me to move my prestige to 50. I will not do that because I know that it will take time. I will be able to do that eventually, but it will take time. However, the reward for this one is pretty good. Form alliance with Portugal, or finish the Conquista. Finish the Conquista is to make sure that Granada, it says Maria Granata and Jabal Tariq, which is our 3 countries, are owned by Castile. Basically means Granada must not exist, and these should be ours. I cannot do that right now because I have a truce with Granada, but I will do this. I will form an alliance with Portugal. So we will advance the game a little because I need a diplomat to do that. My 2 diplomats are in transit, as we said, so I need 2 days to pass. So I can send. Now I'm informed on the 12th of November you will always have this a lot. The whole game, the whole other nations are doing their own diplomacy. So now these notices are other nations sending you messages. Well, it happens that I will not need to wait until the 13th because Portugal is sending me a request to ally me, which I'll accept since I have a mission for it. Missions always take 1 day of transit to complete, so as soon as we move, we'll be able to complete the mission. And Navarra, the small guy here, wants to be my ally too. I will say yes for reasons that I will explain. Not too long. I'll just let a day pass. Now it's informing me the mission to form alliance with Portugal is completed. We gain 10 prestige and 25 diplo points. This is informing me that my diplomat is back. Now Austria is doing a lot of things, as Austria always do. Austria is the guy here. He's one of the big players, one of the lucky nations. Entered a military alliance with Alsace, a small guy here. Okay, Austria entered a military alliance with Augsburg, which is a small guy here. Okay, the small guy here. And Aragon entered a military alliance with Urbino, which you always do. And Austria entered a military alliance with Trier, which is expectable. He's an elector. I'm going to do that system. I'm not in DHR. I might later on. So that's it. Now that that mission is done, we can make another mission. The improved prestige or prestige is still there. Finish the conquest are still there. But we have we have a mission to form a royal marriage with Portugal. We'll take that mission. And now, since we didn't have to send it ourselves, we'll send the request for ourselves. What royal marriages do is basically us marrying their family. What it does first of all, it strengthens our diplomacy with that country, because it basically means that we're not going to be able to go to war with them until the marriage is over. The marriage will be over the day we die, and then we'll have to renew the royal marriage. Also, every single royal marriage will give you these small effects, but you can have a lot of royal marriages. Yearly legitimacy, improve relation, that it will improve relations across the board, and increase chance of new heir, which is a mechanic I'll explain in not too long. I'll just let 1 day pass. As you can see, our diplomats are always in transit as they do actions. I'll just let 1 day pass. This sound was to tell us, hey, we've got a royal marriage. As you can see, Portugal has a royal marriage with us. I'll let another day pass for a mission to finish 5 prestige, another 25 diplo points. And now this mission was replaced by become papal controller. I'm not going to take that because that's impossible to control, which you'll understand why when I that. So before explaining anything else, I will go for the advisors. I will hire my advisors. I just spent a few days without advisors. It was not that wise, but it didn't change much. we need advisors. Now we'll take the advisors. First of all, as I explained in the other episode, advisors gives you values for your monarch points. It's one of the most important one, although at the start you most likely will only be able to hire +1s if you are able to hire the advisors. The other thing is that each advisor, depending on their profession, like this is a philosopher, this is natural scientist, they will have a bonus here. In effect, that will be permanent as long as this guy survives. He has an age, eventually he will die and you'll have to replace him, hiring someone else. So, production efficiency is one source of income, although our production at the start of the game is very low, so this is not relevant in the start of the game. Real prestige might be a good thing, since we're low in prestige. So I'll take that. Because the other one is a +2, I'm not going to hire that. This guy is a trade efficiency guy. Our trade is alright. Better relations over time means that when we send someone to improve relations with a nation, it will do it faster. Spy offense will make it so that if we're doing spy actions, spy defense is protecting you against, it's not protecting you, it makes it more likely that you will find someone doing spying things on you. Spy offense, the opposite, it makes it less likely that you will be found when you do spying. I will take better relations for the start of the game, since we have a lot of diplomacy to do in the start. And as our military advisor, I will take this one because it's the only +1, but anyway, Moral of Armies is one of the best ones at the start of the game. Making 448, I will stay at that, keep it that way. I'll explain why, but basically in the start of the game you want to be able to keep up with military tech because it goes super fast in the beginning. So this being said, as I said, I'm not going to do this. This I'll explain later, and anyway, it's useless at the very start of the game for us, for Castile. And these missions, I don't want them. I will probably take Finish Your Conquista and not take any other mission for 4 years until our truce ends in 48, in 4 years. So until then, we'll do nothing. So our advisors are hired. We're still making 11 ducats a month, which is pretty damn good. Although, as I forgot, we have not filled our army size. But before we go to that, I will explain all this. This game is very in-depth, by the way. So as I explained this, and this, now this is where you will find all the rest of the information for your nation. This is the main things you want to pay attention to. So it's always there. This is everything else. If it's not found here, this is info for your whole nation. If it's not there but it concerns your nation, it will be in the province. Info specific to a province. I'll explain right after. So we'll start at the start. This is the government tab. Government tab, well, it's your government. I'll already explain this and this. I'm not going to go through it again, but yeah, this is your advisors, and this is your monarch points. This is your type of government. There are 3 families of governments, and then these families of governments have types in them. Usually speaking, each family of government have a specific mechanic linked to it. Legitimacy is the mechanic for monarchies. They also have republics, which have tradition, and you have theocracies, which has nothing. Theocracies are the least powerful diplomatically, but they are the easiest to manage and the most stable. If I want to paint a broad brush for that. So, in the beginning of the game, there are 2 types of monarchies: feudal monarchies and despotic monarchies. Feudal monarchies are focused around vassals. We'll have quickly 1 vassal, so we'll keep it. Basically, if you want to change, well, we can't change. And what I mean by 2 types is at the beginning of the game, all monarchies are one of 2 types, either despotic or feudal. Most are feudal, but some will be despotic. Anyways, your monarchy types will have separate effects. Feudal monarchy will give you a bonus to manpower. I explain what manpower is, and an increase to income from vassals. That's why we have 40 here, which well, 39.95 now, but I'll break it down later. Basically, feudal monarchies, well, you have more income from vassals. Also manpower, because you have manpower coming from your vassals. But this is it. If you have despotic monarchy, you will have -1 on res because people fear you, and -10% on justified demands. I'll explain what that is, but it's a diplomatic bonus. Then you have your king. This brings us to the main issue in the beginning of the game for Castile. Their king and their heir are worthless. This is my king, Juan II de Trastamara. This Trastamara is my dynasty, which is a key mechanic for personal unions. Keep that in mind for when I explain what personal union is. But technically speaking, unless there's trouble and problems, our heir would always be our dynasty. Like France as the Valois dynasty, Austria as von Habsburg. If you mouse over it, you'll be able to see right under the inauguration date, which is pretty much useless to know, it's just fluff. You will see which other nations has the same dynasty. There's Aragon and Navarre. This is an important info to keep in mind if you want to be able to use the personal union mechanic, which I'll explain later, which is basically inheriting a whole other country because it's in your right. But the first step to be able to do that is to manage to get your dynasty over their country. So that's it, and it explains to you what will happen if the monarch dies. As long as you have an heir, what happens on your monarch death is that your heir takes the throne. If I wouldn't have an heir, it would tell me something else. Inheritance of the country when you don't have an heir will be two things. One of two things. Well, one of three things. It will either be inherited by a noble in your country, which will be a noble of your house. He just was not in line, but now he's in line because there's no heir. Or it will be someone of your dynasty in another country. A current ruler of another country will inherit your country, which will put you under a personal union of that country. What decides which happens is prestige. If you have higher prestige, oh, one thing I forgot to mention, having the same dynasty is not enough. You also be able to be in a royal marriage with that country. So by normal means, I wouldn't be able to personal union Aragon because I cannot give them a royal marriage for the main reasons that we are rivals. So we're not going to be able to marry them. Yes, Navarre, which I will allied. We are allies. I'll let 1 day pass so I get the diplomat. And now I will royal marriage him. That will let me show you exactly what I mean. So we have the Trastamara and now we have a royal marriage with Navarre. As you can see, Navarre starts without a ruler. This is not the same Juan as us, by the way. They don't have an heir. What does it say? On the monarch death, there is a succession war between Castile and France. Why France? I'll explain in a second. So basically, if the king dies, he doesn't have an heir, so the mechanic of personal unions will trigger. If he had more prestige than me, there would be no succession war. The noble of his house within his country will take the throne. That would create stability issues inside the country, but at least it means that he's not owned by another country. But that's not the case. I have 23 prestige, he has 4. By the way, these info are the same as here, just follow the symbols. This is their tech level. We all start at 3, so... Never. I'm skipping ahead on this, but it's just letting me explain this. So, why France? So basically, when there are 2 ways to inherit another country, either forcing it by claiming their throne, or it just happens naturally because the king dies. So what I could do, if I wanted, since he doesn't have an heir, and he has my dynasty, and we have the same marriage, against a button here, claim the throne. Well, it says until the 17th of December because I sent a diplomat, and when you send a diplomat to a nation, you cannot send another diplomat to that same nation for a month. But ignore this right now. I could claim the throne. It would cost me prestige, but it would give me a reason to attack them, to put them under personal union. I'm not going to do that because I have easier ways to own Navarra. But that's the mechanic. That's the way to force a personal union. You have to fight that nation for it. So you have to create the Casus Belli, which in this game is the reason you have to attack a country. I'll explain more in detail what a Casus Belli is when you do war, but basically this is the one way to do a personal union. You attack, you claim the throne, and then you attack them with that Casus Belli that claiming the throne gives you. If you win, you have the succession over that country. This is one way. You fight that nation to get the personal union. The other way is by inheriting the country. This means that you don't have to do anything. You just have a royal marriage with them and you wait. You cross fingers that the guy dies without having an heir. If he dies and doesn't have an heir, since he has less prestige than me, and I have the most prestige of all his royal marriages because he could have more royal marriages, of all the nations that has royal marriages with him, if he dies without an heir, the one with more prestige will inherit the country. If it's him, it's a noble. If it's one of the royal marriages, that country ends up in a royal marriage, in a personal union, automatically. I don't have to fight to have the personal union. But my most powerful, my most prestigious rival, which is France right now, will say, no, you don't do that. Which is why there would be a war between Castile and France. I would have the personal union, but I would have to fight to keep it. The main difference in these two ways is that to claim you are in an aggressive war against the nation that you want the personal union over, the other way around by integrating it, you are in a defensive war against a nation that doesn't want you to keep that personal union. I'll go back to personal unions later on when we inherit Aragon, but that's the basics of it. So once this guy dies, this guy takes the throne. When he takes the throne, there's a chance that he has an heir. If he doesn't, every year there will be a chance that an heir appears that is 0 years old. This guy inherits the heir, if there's an heir when he inherits this, the heir might be 16. But if the heir appears later on during the life of the current ruler, the heir will be 0. It's a son basically. So, or a daughter. So yes, he takes the throne. He has a new heir. If he doesn't, personal unions, as I just explained. Claim is what I explained, is linked to legitimacy. The legitimacy here is the legitimacy of the current ruler. The claim is the relative legitimacy that the heir will have when he inherits the throne. A strong is usually between 80 and 100. An average one is between 50 and 80, I'm not sure of the numbers, and a weak is usually always 20. If he has an average or a weak claim, expect pretenders to spawn. Rebels, pretenders are a type of rebels, pretenders to spawn as soon as he inherits. So basically there's people in the nobles in the country that considers their claim is stronger than whoever took the throne. This is this. Country modifiers, we'll stack them up as the game progresses. These are permanent or temporary modifiers that your country gets. It will all be a bunch of icons, and you just mouse over to know what they are, and if they have a timer, the timer will be there. Culture. I talked about religion. You can also see culture. Every country has a main culture. Of course, Castile is Castilian. Aragon is Aragonese. France is cosmopolitan. England is English, etc., etc. That main culture will always be accepted. There are accepted cultures in your country and unaccepted cultures in your country. Your main culture will always be accepted. However, you might be able to accept other cultures if they are numerous enough. By default, the threshold for a culture to be accepted in your country is 20% of the base tax. So every country has a tax value, which is called base tax. So this country is Leonese, and this province is Leonese, and is 5 base tax. Asturias is Leonese and 6 base tax. If you add all that is Leonese, which is these 4 provinces, that's 6, 11, 6, 17, 20. And we have a total of 113. I'm missing one. Okay, I'm not sure exactly, but basically it's 20%. If a culture in total is worth 20% of your total country's base tax, that culture will be accepted. If not, it's not. That's as simple as that. So as you can see, Galician is yellow. It's not here. We accept Andalusian, which is the south here, which is used to be Granada, and Leonese, which is the country, the Kingdom of Leon here, and the Kingdom of Galicia here. But Galicia is too small. They're not accepted. This brings the color yellow. You have 3 colors that you will see: green, which means accepted; yellow, which means unaccepted, but in your group. I'll explain group in a sec. I don't know if anyone owns. And red, like the country Savoy, as provinces that are Burgundian, means that they own that province, but that culture is not accepted. Savoyan people hate Burgundians. There's not enough for them to like them. So what does it affect? So, well, first I'll explain groups. Every culture is linked to a cultural group. Castilian is in the Iberian group. So in that Iberian group, you have Castilian, Leonese, Aragonese, Catalan, Galician, Andalusian, Portuguese, and Basque. All those cultures, even if they are not accepted, will still be in the group. As you can see, accepted cultures, no modifiers. In the same group, you will have slightly less taxes that you'll be able to raise from this province, and slightly less manpower that you'll be able to raise from this province. But it's not that bad. If you haven't accepted, these are the modifiers. +2 unrest, because it's not accepted and not in the group. -33 tax modifier. -2% missionary strength, so they are harder to convert if we had to convert them. And -33% manpower modifier. So how do you make a province be accepted culturally? You have 3 ways. Either you conquer more of that culture, so that eventually you reach the 20% threshold, or you convert that culture, which is possible eventually, by using diplo points. Just trying to find, okay, when I could convert cashers if I wanted to. I'll just finish this. So basically I could convert this for 75 diplo points. It will take time. It doesn't take anyone to do that, it just takes time. And once it's done, that province will switch to Castilian, my main culture. This makes it sure that this province will never be accepted. However, I don't need to do that for a mechanic linked to Spain once we form Spain. Galicia is the same thing. All Iberian cultures will be the same for Spain. I'll explain that when we form Spain. But if I was to take, by example, French provinces, Aquitaine, which is in the French group, or Gascon, if I was to take them, I might want to convert them because I might never be able to make them accepted. As I said, there are 3 ways to make a province be accepted culturally. Either you convert them to your culture, or you make them reach 20% threshold by conquering more land of that culture, or you lower the culture threshold, which you will do from specific modifiers if you want to do that. The only other thing I have to say about culture is that you cannot convert a culture if the religion in that province is not of your main religion. So you will have to convert province religiously before you can convert the culture. Also, when you conquer new land, you get a modifier called nationalism on that province, and you cannot convert the culture of a province that has nationalism on it. And the last thing, some cultures will see some countries to be their main, their primary country. Like the English culture will see we'll see England as their main country. As long as that country exists, it will be impossible to convert the culture of a province. So you either have to kill them, you have to kill them to convert them. So that's it for culture, and that will be it for this episode. Thank you for watching, guys. It's been a little longer than I expected, but I'll see you in the next episode.